When people talk about my early career, they usually imagine me waiting tables, maybe working in a fancy boutique, or handing out scripts in some Hollywood cafe. That's the typical actor in LA, starter pack, but the truth about me is far more ridiculous. Before the tuxedos, before Ocean's 11, before Fight Club posters in college dorms, I was a chicken, not metaphorically, not in some weird costume party. I was literally hired to dress up as a giant yellow chicken and stand outside a restaurant, waving at strangers who probably thought I had lost a bet. That was my glamorous entry into Hollywood. The place was called El Palo Loco, which translates to the crazy chicken. And let me tell you, nothing was crazier than me sweating inside that fluffy suit in the middle of Los Angeles traffic. The job description was simple: wear the costume, hold the sign, and make tacos sound irresistible. Dignity not included. I wasn't just advertising food. I was a walking, clunky warning sign that chasing dreams can look ridiculous before it looks successful. At first, I told myself it was temporary, just a quick gig to pay rent until auditions came along. But days turned into weeks. Each morning I dragged myself to the locker room, climb into that yellow sauna suit, and pray that no one from my high school, or God forbid, a crush from back home, happened to be visiting LA. Los Angeles is a huge city, but embarrassment has a way of making it feel like a small town. The worst part wasn't even the heat, though that suit was basically an oven with feathers. The real torture was the heckling. Drivers leaned out of their cars to cluck at me, flap their arms, and scream chicken puns that even dad joke competitions would reject. Once, a guy shouted, "Hey, Chicken Little, Hollywood is falling." Another yelled, "Fry already." I laughed on the outside, but inside I wondered, maybe they were right. Maybe Hollywood was falling, at least for me. But here's the thing, the job wasn't entirely pointless. Between the laughter, the honks, and the pointing fingers, I started learning something: performing under pressure, smiling through humiliation, keeping energy up when nobody cared. Every silly wave, every awkward dance move with the sign, it was training, not for tacos, but for Hollywood. If I could survive polyester feathers in 90-degree weather, I could survive rejection. Maybe, in some cosmic joke, this crazy chicken suit was the first stage of my career. The funny thing about humiliation is that you get used to it faster than you think. Those first days in the chicken suit, I felt like I was starring in the world's worst reality show. Brad Pitt, poultry extraordinaire. Every step felt like a walk of shame with feathers. But after a week, something strange happened. I stopped caring. If the world was going to laugh at me, then fine. I'd give them a performance worth remembering. I flapped, I twirled, I even invented my own chicken moonwalk. Call it survival, call it performance art, but I became the most committed bird on the boulevard. The managers didn't expect much. Just stand, wave, and don't pass out from dehydration. But I treated it like theater. If someone honked, I bowed dramatically. If a kid clucked, I clucked back twice as loud. Once, I even tried to juggle the sign. While spinning around, it ended with me nearly collapsing on the pavement. But the crowd of strangers loved it. Did it sell tacos? No idea. But at least I wasn't just surviving, I was entertaining. Of course, there were perks. By perks, I mean free fried chicken during breaks. Imagine me, a man in a chicken suit, eating a drumstick, looking like some tragic, self-cannibalizing cartoon. At first, I felt ridiculous. Then I realized free food meant one less bill to worry about. Rent, gas, ramen, survival in LA is brutal. If irony was the price of a free meal, I paid gladly. Sometimes I even joked that I was a method actor, eating my own kind to really become the role. Teenagers were merciless. Once, a group surrounded me, flapping their arms, yelling KFC reject, as if they had just invented comedy. Another time, a van full of cheerleaders slowed down just to shout, "Shake those wings, chicken boy." I had the options, cry or disco spin. So I spun. The cheers got louder, and for a second, I felt like I was headlining a poultry-themed concert. Embarrassing, yes, but it taught me that sometimes the only way out of humiliation is to own it. What I didn't realize then was how important all this humiliation would be. Every honk, every cluck, every crow laugh toughened me up. I learned how to perform even when the audience wasn't kind. I learned how to turn mockery into energy. Later, when I faced rejection in auditions, I remembered, if I can survive polyester feathers and a crowd of teenagers calling me KFC reject, I can survive anything. The chicken suit wasn't the death of my dream. It was boot camp. After a few months of clucking on command, I realized something terrifying. If I didn't make a move soon, I might become the poultry mascot of Los Angeles forever. Don't laugh, that's a real fear when your resume literally reads professional chicken. So I started a new routine. Every shift, I'd peel off the sweaty costume, stuff it into the locker that smelled like French fries and despair, and rush across town for auditions. My skin reeked of fryer oil, my hair polyester feathers, but I convinced myself casting directors wouldn't notice. Auditions were brutal. Picture 30 guys who look exactly like you, same jawline, same haircut, same dreamy smile, all lined up like action figures. The waiting room felt like an army of Brad Pitt clones, except most of them had better shoes. Inside, the casting directors barely looked up. I'd start reading my lines, voice shaking, palms sweaty, smelling faintly of tacos. Compared to being a chicken, this somehow felt scarier. On the sidewalk, people laughed with me. In auditions, silence was worse than laughter. Money didn't help either. Rent devoured most of my paycheck, gas took the rest, and ramen noodles were my luxury item. To fill the gaps, I took every odd job imaginable, moving furniture, handing out flyers, babysitting, even a day scrubbing carpets. None of it glamorous, but each gig reminded me why I was here. Not to carry sofas for strangers, but to build a career that one day would make this all look like a funny prologue. Still, there were nights when doubt hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd sit in my tiny apartment, the wallpaper peeling, the roaches acting like rent-paying roommates, and think maybe I should just quit. Maybe I'd go home. Maybe the chicken was my destiny. But then I'd remember how humiliating that costume was, how drivers mocked me daily. The thought of being stuck there forever was scarier than failure itself. And then, little victories began to appear, a background role in a soap opera, a cheesy soda, commercial where I had to smile like carbonation was life-changing, a training video where I pretended to enjoy typing. None of these made me famous, but they felt monumental. They proved I wasn't stuck. I wasn't just a crazy chicken anymore. I was Brad Pitt, struggling actor, climbing one tiny rung at a time, and for the first time, I started to believe the dream wasn't so impossible. Landing my first commercial felt like the world had just handed me a golden ticket. Okay, maybe it was only for a cola brand where my job was to sip, smile. It looked like carbonation was changing my life, but still, I was on camera, without feathers. That 30-second ad felt like an Oscar speech. After all those days sweating in yellow polyester, standing in front of a camera, even just to drink soda was pure magic. For the first time, I thought, maybe this is actually happening. But Hollywood doesn't roll out the red carpet for beginners. After the soda, it was back to rejection, back to auditions where casting directors stared at me like I'd interrupted their lunch break. I picked up tiny roles, background extra in a hospital soap, a nameless boyfriend in a training video, even guy walking behind main character 3. None of it glamorous, but every appearance on screen was one step further from poultry. Each credit felt like I was slowly molting into something better. The best part was the people I met along the way. Other dreamers, actors, singers, comedians, all broke, all hustling, all living on caffeine and hope. We gather in our shared apartments, laugh about rejection, and eat pizza we couldn't afford. Everyone had their own chicken suit story, a waitress uniform, a mall Santa costume, a job as a giant hot dog mascot. Mine just had more feathers, but swapping stories made us feel less alone. Of course, doubt still haunted me. Some nights I stared at the ceiling in my showbox apartment, thinking maybe I should quit. Maybe this was too hard. But then I pictured myself back in that costume. Cars honking, kids clucking, drivers shouting Chicken Little. That memory was enough to jolt me. A pride. I wasn't going back. If humiliation had taught me anything, it was that chasing the dream was less painful than staying stuck in the feathers forever. Then, the tiniest miracle, a casting director stopped me after an audition and said, "You've got something." It wasn't a job offer, but it was the first spark of validation. Just a sentence, but it echoed in my head like a prophecy. From that moment, I carried myself differently. The chicken suit no longer felt like shame. It felt like the bizarre, feathered beginning of a much bigger story. Looking back now, it feels surreal that my Hollywood story began with feathers. At the time, it was humiliating. Today, it's my favorite punchline. People expect stories of glamorous waitering jobs or mysterious Hollywood connections. Instead, I get to say, actually, I was a chicken, a big yellow one. I'd dance on sidewalks to sell tacos. Somehow, that truth makes people laugh and believe in the idea that success can come from anywhere. Sometimes it begins in polyester. That ridiculous job taught me something no acting class ever could: resilience. If you can survive being mocked by passing cars, you can handle critics. If you can flap your wings while teenagers call you KFC reject, you can walk into a casting room and keep your confidence. Those hot afternoons outside El Palo Loco were my first stage. The audience wasn't kind, but it was honest. And every honk, every laugh, every smirk prepared me for brighter lights. People sometimes ask if I feel embarrassed by my poultry past. Embarrassed? Not even a little. That chicken soup paid my rent, filled my stomach, and gave me the best origin story in Hollywood. I wear it like a badge of honor. If anything, I feel grateful. The road to stardom isn't paved with velvet. It's paved with odd jobs, rejection slips, and yes, fried chicken promotions. My story just happens to be extra crispy. Here's the secret: the chicken suit never really left me. Every role I've ever played has a feather of that experience hidden inside. Whether I'm playing a cowboy, a fighter, or a con man, I remember the guy who danced in polyester for strangers. That job wasn't a mistake. It was training. It toughened me, humbled me, and gave me a story that no one else in Hollywood could tell. So if you're working a job that feels silly, meaningless, or humiliating, don't despair. Every great story has a ridiculous first chapter. Mine started with feathers, sweat, and taco coupons. Yours might start with burgers, mop buckets, or name tags. One day, when the spotlight finally finds you, you'll laugh too. Because what feels like humiliation today might just be the warm-up act for your destiny.